Form over function is a phrase that gets used every once in a while, and it's a term I feel encapsulates AAA gaming fairly well these days. Now, I won't lie, I'm a sucker for good eye candy and a good story, but it seems a lot of studios push out these conventionally good looking games with lackluster mechanics behind them. A recent example that comes to mind is Starfield. Although it can look great and has an interesting story, in my opinion, the gameplay feels archaic and needs some flushing out. That sort of experience is far less compelling than a game that might not look phenomenal or isn't particularly well written, but has developed and engaging gameplay systems. And when applying the phrase form over function to video games, the gameplay is definitely the function. So today I'd like to take a look at some games that put function over form. Now, that's not to say the games I'm looking at today are ugly or have bad stories, but rather that visuals and story are second to the quality of the gameplay. So with that preamble out of the way, let's get into it. I'm going to start off with probably the most obvious game to fit these criteria, Minecraft. Minecraft is the most popular game ever made, and for the majority of players I'd wager, who are on console, mobile, or more modest PCs, the graphics are basic. Now, they aren't bad. In fact, I'd argue the fact that the graphics being simple is a strength to the game. I prefer keeping my texture pack default whenever I play because the default visuals do a great job for delivering information. And I don't have to really spend time trying to figure out what I'm looking at. Blocks are distinct and easy to tell apart. But that's still form. Let's get to the function. Why is Minecraft so good despite looking basic? Well, it can actually pretty easily be summed up in two words. Player freedom. See, I'm not actually the most active Minecraft player. Everything past the Xbox 360 version of the game is pretty Greek to me. But the beauty is, it doesn't matter. I can hop right in, ignore those new mechanics, and still have a great time. And it's because the game gives me control over what I want to do. I don't have to try and find a stronghold so I can go beat the Ender Dragon. If I want to build a house on an isolated mountain or build a town on an island, the only thing stopping me is my own motivation, time, and creativity. No NPCs constantly egging me on to deal with the urgently important plot. Minecraft is a game that you want it to be. And hey, if that ends up meaning you want Minecraft to look better, well, there are, thousands of mods that you could do that with if your PC has the horsepower. Just saying. Alright, with the obvious game out of the way, let's take a look at a game that not everyone with a pulse knows about, BattleBit Remastered. And no, I promise this isn't a Call of Duty mod for Minecraft. BattleBit Remastered is a first-person shooter that made waves early in the summer of this year, 2023, if you're watching this in the future. And with no exaggeration, this is my go-to Battlefield game now. And it's not even made by EA. For $15 and featuring, once again, simple graphics, BattleBit is a large-scale team warfare game that pits 127 people against, well, another 127 people. Its simple graphics not only allow for such an experience to run, but to run well. Good performance in a large player base alone, though, don't make for a good game. And that's where the scope of the game's content and mechanics come in. The game features loads of weapons that are spread across 5 classes, technically 6, but I'm not going to include the squad leader class. It's basically assault. Anyways, each weapon with a comprehensive set of attachments to grind out and unlock. And although the weapon balancing isn't perfect, the dev team of 3, yes, 3 people, have an approach where they try to make all the weapons feel good and try not to nerf good guns, but buff bad guns when possible. BattleBit also features vehicles, large squads, an open mic system, fortification building, and a whole lot of immersive gameplay. I could really go on and go much deeper into BattleBit, but for now, I'll just say this. BattleBit visuals are a conscious choice made by the developers, and the game is better because they opted to put the gameplay first. Okay, I'm getting a little tired looking at blocky games, and I'd imagine you are too, so let's move on and take a look at our next game. If you're a fan of Doom-style games, or boomer shooters as the genre is called, then you may enjoy this game. If you're a fan of games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, then oddly enough, you may also enjoy this game. If you're a fan of both, well, Ultra Kill here may just be your new favorite game. Now, don't let its more archaically styled graphics fool you. It's an incredibly tight feeling and engaging title. It's a first-person shooter where you play as a robot, but there's a caveat. Blood is your fuel, and you need it to heal. That simple little modifier ends up really determining the tempo of engagements compared to other shooters, as you're incentivized to close the distance with enemies to stay alive. That's not the only modification to the formula though, as Ultra Kill also has a combat skill modifier, like Devil May Cry, that rates your combat prowess with a letter grade at the end of each engagement. These two little rules turn combat from a sit behind cover and take pot shots affair into an up close and frenetic gunfight every single time. None of this is to mention the excellent weapons, character abilities, and enemy designs. But I'm going to leave it here, as Ultra Kill is a finite and handcrafted experience, and I don't want to detract from your experience if you decide to play it. Suffice it to say that it's a mechanically rich game that doesn't distract you with flashy visuals or realistic but cluttered environments, but just keeps you hooked with its clean gameplay. So here we are at the final game I'm going to be covering today. I've saved the best for last, well, at least in my opinion, so let's get into it and talk about Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 has simple environments and models, but that's definitely what the devs were shooting for with their art style, as they wanted a more stylized look over a realistic one. So why am I talking about Risk of Rain 2 specifically? Roguelikes in general are a genre that tend to opt for function over form. Well, it's because, in my opinion, it's one of the best games at leveraging the extra performance allowed by basic visuals. But I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. Let's get into the gameplay loop. It's really simple, with you entering each level with the goal of looting items and killing each stage's boss. Where it gets interesting is when you start playing with the absurd item stacking and the synergy, and start getting into just the huge amounts of enemies that start filtering in at later levels. Now back to the items. This allows for near infinite build potential, and because it's a roguelike, you never feel permanently overpowered, because at some point you are going to be overwhelmed by all of those enemies, and your run will come to an end if you choose not to beat the game. This gets dangerously addictive, as after losing a run, I just feel compelled to try again and see what my loot's going to be like. This replayability is further stacked upon when you consider there are 14 playable characters, each with new abilities to unlock. This adds a ton of variety to the gameplay, and all of this is only really achievable with basic graphics. Yeah, even with its graphics, a late game run can make my PC chug, and I have a pretty decent rig, not to toot my own horn. The sheer amount of enemies, projectiles, and other players if you opt for co-op, well, they have a major impact on performance. And the only way to really make that sort of intense experience run well is to simplify the graphics. And at the end of the day, with this game and the others on this list, I'm fine with that. Because I would rather play a fun game than a good-looking game. Alright, so I'm going scriptless for the end of the video here, now that I've finished writing it and recording and even getting all the footage I've needed. I just wanted to say this is by no means a comprehensive look into any of these games, and they have depth beyond what I've discussed. The great thing about these games, though, is that they will run on pretty much anything, and they're all relatively cheap. So hopefully, if you hadn't heard of some of these, you give them a chance and you enjoy them. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching and the support lately, and just let me know what you guys want me to cover next. Bye.